You ever get one of those chills? Not because of the spooky story, but because something bigger just slammed into reality? That's what happened during that joint Browns-Panthers practice. Not because of a flashy catch or a viral clip. No, because two underdogs, Shedeur Sanders and Jimmy Horn Jr., decided to spit in the face of every expectation ever placed on them. And the sound that followed, that was haters silenced. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. Picture this. Shedeur, buried fourth on the depth chart, steps onto the field with the calm of a man who owns a moment, despite reps being thinner than his jersey number. He's reading coverages like an open book, ducking rush lanes with quiet authority, and getting the ball where it needs to go before defenses even know how to react. There's no theatrics, just his signature blend of cool and precision. Meanwhile, Jimmy Horn Jr., drafted late, is lighting up the Panthers' defense with stunning explosiveness, snapping routes that look tailor-made for a highlight reel, stretching the field and bending defenders into pretzels. These two, Shedeur calmly delivering balls in the face of pressure, Jimmy taking the underneath routes and turning them into explosive gains, didn't just show up. They made a statement, a seismic one that echoes louder than any tweet headline or shout of "he's just their parent's son." Let me tell you about Shedeur's rhythm in that pocket. One incompletion, reckless on paper, followed by three pinpoint darts that treated defenders like obstacles in a video game. He didn't throw with force. He threw with website terms, precision, poise, vision. And over on the other side, Horn didn't just outroute his defender. He rewrote the concept of contact. He didn't dance around coverage. He sliced through it like he always knew how to do. And the camera pans? No commentary caught up fast enough. In fact, you can almost hear the disbelief unfolding behind the booth. The silence felt heavier than applause. Was this expected? No. Was it earned? Every single snap. Let's talk about this deeper, because it's not just ball skills. It's the power shift. Two guys who came into the league under the radar, judged by slots, draft charts, and sometimes legacies. A kid with Dion's name on his back, a sixth-round receiver trying to out-hustle the tape. We're suddenly rewriting the story in real time. No press stunts. No drama. Just facts on the field. And the locker room noticed. The wideouts rushed to high-five Shedeur. The linemen nodded respect to Horn. The energy didn't just shift, it inverted. Suddenly, the most dismissed players became the heartbeat of the offense. You want to know how real the shift is? Watch the coaches swivel toward the scoreboard. Not to check downs left, but to see who's running the offense. Veterans who used to grit teeth in silence now lean in. It's a power of presence. Meanwhile, the media, they're scrambling. How do you reframe someone you've already written off? There's no footnote for quietly owning every rep, outplaying expectations, and earning the locker room's trust without a camera spotlight. This is bigger than draft position. It's not a checklist anymore. It's character that's carrying the day. Everyone's watching. Fans are buzzing. Social media is lit from the flicker of that moment, even without signal. And rival teams are circling the tape like sharks smelling blood. But beyond the glitz, here's where it gets deeper. Shedeur isn't just ready to play. He's ready to lead. He said so through his actions. Jimmy, he didn't just catch the ball. He made it big enough to matter. Together, they're building the kind of foundation that shifts expectations, not just for themselves, but for every misjudged athlete that follows. Because the league is shifting, too. No longer content to validate only traditional stat-laden heroes. It's now about who meets the moment. And tonight, Shedeur met it. Horn crushed it. So what happens next? That's the question. Do they get their shot? Do we finally see Shedeur under center when the lights burn brightest? Do we see Horn turn those route tears into game tape that demands real money? Will the Browns lean into their own moment or let the optics scare them into safety? The tension is real. But one thing's certain, they just change the conversation. Because sometimes silence speaks loudest. And right now, the silence from the critics is deafening. What nobody saw coming wasn't just the performance itself. It was the timing. Because that practice, that was supposed to be a controlled environment, a glorified tune-up, the kind of joint session where veterans coast, rookies stay quiet, and coaches tinker in peace. But then Shedeur Sanders and Jimmy Horn Jr. did what underdogs always do best: ruin the plan. You could feel it shift right from the first whistle. Shedeur wasn't jogging into drills. He was gliding. He wasn't calling plays. He was orchestrating them. And it wasn't just how he moved, but how the team moved with him. This wasn't a rookie managing reps moment. This was a quarterback tilting the gravity of a practice toward himself. The tempo changed. The vibe changed. Suddenly, every huddle with Shedeur wasn't just about the play. It was about belief. And on the other side of the field, Jimmy Horn Jr. wasn't out there running decoy routes or earning scout team praise. No, he was disrupting coverages, breaking routes with surgical precision. He caught a sideline out with such body control, one Panthers assistant just shook his head. You know that look someone gives when they realize they just slept on a guy too long? That look was everywhere. Here's what made it all more poetic: the absence of entitlement. Neither of these guys acted like they were owed anything. Shedeur wasn't throwing shade at the quarterbacks ahead of him. He wasn't waving stats around or flashing sideline theatrics. Jimmy wasn't demanding more reps or stomping out of drills. They just executed. Clean, relentless, focused. But the pressure? Oh, it was there. You could feel it every time Shedeur dropped back, because these weren't throwaway snaps. This wasn't garbage time. This was his shot. Maybe the only one he'd get in front of first-team defenders like Brian Burns or Shaq Thompson. And he owned it. There's one play that stood out more than any highlight. Third end medium during a red zone set. Pressure coming off the edge, pocket collapsing fast. And Shedeur doesn't panic, doesn't flinch. He slides, just a whisper of movement, buys a second, and delivers a dart between two defenders for a tight window completion. Not flashy, not viral, just real. And sometimes, real is all you need to break through noise. Meanwhile, Jimmy was showcasing something most rookies don't master until year 2 or 3: route manipulation. You know what that means? Selling a vertical, snapping into a comeback, turning safeties around with just enough shoulder fake to make them hesitate. Horn isn't just fast, he's deceptively smart. He understands how to read leverage. That's not taught in a playbook. That's instincts refined by repetition. Now let's talk locker room, because this kind of shift doesn't stay on the field. Players notice, and not just the young guys hustling to make the roster. Starters, vets, guys who know the league is cutthroat. They're watching Shedeur take control like it's week 10. They're watching Jimmy burn through coverages like he's been doing this for years. And respect? It's spreading. Not because of their names, but because of their work. There's a whisper that starts when this happens in a team environment. A question nobody wants to say out loud: why isn't that guy getting more reps? That's when the pressure shifts to the coaching staff. Because coaches, especially in the NFL, aren't just drawing plays. They're managing egos, narratives, and ownership expectations. Giving Shedeur more reps means taking them from someone else. It means admitting the depth chart might have been wrong. And in a place like Cleveland, where quarterback decisions are haunted by a decade of ghosts, every move carries weight. But Shedeur isn't waiting around for handouts. He's making waiting look ridiculous. The comparison game, of course, is already revving up. How does he stack up next to Kenny Pickett? To Dylan Gabriel? To Joe Flacco's experience? But that's the thing. Those comparisons miss the point. This isn't about raw numbers. It's about readiness. And every time Shedeur steps onto that field, he's answering the only question that matters. Can he run the offense? Not survive it. Run it. And here's something else you won't hear on a stat sheet. Shedeur doesn't just control the play. He changes the mood. Teams that struggle with identity need players who bring it. He does. Jimmy Horn does. These aren't hopefuls. They're tone setters. They walk in with urgency and leave with the air changed. So let's talk stakes. Because we're reaching that part of camp where everything starts tightening up. Cuts are coming. Preseason snaps start to carry finality. And suddenly, the guys who just looked promising a week ago are either on the bubble or in the rotation. Shedeur is making it very hard to justify not seeing what he can do with the ones. Not for a series, for a half. And Jimmy? He's already looking like someone defenses will have to game plan around in weeks, not seasons. But here's the most important part of all this. Both of these players are proving they belong without anyone holding the door open. Shedeur's name may carry legacy, but he's not leaning on it. And Jimmy's draft position may scream depth piece, but he's rewriting that script in real time. They're not waiting for narratives to shift. They're forcing them to. There was a moment after practice, quiet, unfilmed, unquoted, when Shedeur and Jimmy dap each other up. Just a nod. That look of shared defiance. Not celebration. Not satisfaction. Just understanding. Because deep down, both know they're still climbing. Still proving. Still battling. But if the joint practice was any indication, the mountain just got a little smaller. And the league? It just got a loud wake-up call in the form of two rookies who weren't supposed to be this good, this fast. Funny how that works. You bury someone on a depth chart, and they sprout roots. You overlook them in the draft, and they show up in your face at practice, reminding you that stars don't ask for permission. They just rise. So when the next depth chart drops, and when the next set of joint practices go live, watch for number 5 in orange and number 10 in black. Not because they're flashy, but because they're inevitable. The NFL's gatekeepers may not be ready, but Shedeur Sanders and Jimmy Horn Jr., oh, they're just getting started. And the only thing louder than their breakout, the silence from the doubters they left behind. With Shedeur Sanders and Jimmy Horn Jr. turning NFL training camp into their personal proving ground, and the league scrambling to make sense of the narrative shift they've ignited. This part of the story isn't about hype anymore. It's about what happens when two players, written off by scouts and buried on depth charts, start forcing conversations no one wanted to have. What's making this moment feel so seismic isn't just their performance. It's how they're doing it, and why it's unsettling the status quo. You've got Shedeur, a quarterback who should be lauded for his footwork, pocket intelligence, and deep ball accuracy. But instead he's treated like a celebrity project. Let's be honest. If he had a different last name, his rise might have been framed as historic rookie discipline. But because he's Deion's son, every success is met with a cynical asterisk. Every throw, every rep, is under a microscope that doesn't search for flaws, it expects them. And yet, rep after rep, practice after practice, Shedeur doesn't flinch. He adjusts. He evolves. He builds chemistry with second-string receivers, then makes the same magic happen when given a brief stint with the first-team guys. What we're watching is not just growth, it's consistency. And that's what's driving coaches into the uncomfortable zone. Because when a so-called QB for looks like your most composed signal caller in camp, it exposes the politics of the position. Now zoom in on Jimmy Horn Jr., the wide receiver every analyst overlooked because of his size, draft spot, and the usual raw prospect label. But he's not raw. He's razor sharp. He's putting defenders on skates with his footwork and leaving cornerbacks trailing like they're chasing a rumor. Jimmy isn't running routes. He's painting them. Watch him set up his breaks. Watch him manipulate coverage with subtle head fakes and tempo changes. He's not just winning his battles. He's schooling people. And yet, you'll still hear whispers in certain rooms. Well, it's just camp. Yeah, camp against NFL starters. Camp against Pro Bowl corners and linebackers with something to prove. That excuse doesn't hold weight when the lights are on and guys are still getting cooked. But let's not lose sight of what's truly brewing here. Chemistry, that unteachable, unpredictable spark between Shedeur and Jimmy, is becoming the Browns' worst-kept secret. Every day, every rep, they find each other with more rhythm, more timing, more trust. You'd think they've been teammates for years, not guys tossed into different systems with different expectations. In a league obsessed with intangibles, how is no one talking about this intangible? The ability to create momentum in a situation where the deck is clearly stacked against you. That's not normal rookie behavior. That's not a couple of kids riding preseason adrenaline. That's football IQ. That's professionalism. That's a quiet takeover in progress. And guess what else has happened behind the scenes? Teammates are starting to back them, not just with polite press quotes or locker room banner, but with actions. Look at who lines up next to them in optional drills. Look at who stays after practice to run an extra rep. Shedeur isn't asking for the locker room. He's earning it. Jimmy isn't demanding targets. He's commanding them. That's the part that never shows up on stat sheets or highlight reels. The ripple effect. The way young talent, when it refuses to shrink, can challenge even the most cemented hierarchies in a franchise. Shedeur and Jimmy have flipped that switch. Now let's talk pressure. Not media pressure. Internal pressure. You've got a coaching staff in Cleveland that knows every decision will be dissected to death. Every QB rep, every roster cut, every snap count. Stefanski and company are walking a tightrope. If they give Shedeur too many reps too soon, they risk alienating the veterans. If they don't give him enough, they risk losing the locker room. It's a brutal balancing act, and Sanders is making it harder with every perfect throw. And while the coaching staff juggles that, the front office is feeling a different heat, the heat of optics. Because if Shedeur is the real deal, and you sit him behind a struggling rotation just to protect your narrative, guess who's on the hook? The GM, the owner, the scouting department, everyone who had a say in placing him fourth on that chart. The beauty and danger of the NFL is that everything moves fast. What looked like a safe plan last month can feel like a mistake today. And the Browns are dangerously close to watching that mistake grow legs, walk into a rival stadium, and torch them on national TV. Because if Shedeur isn't starting by week 1, you can bet someone will come calling. It won't be a question of if, only how much. And let's not forget the broader implication of what these two are doing. This isn't just about the Browns. This is about the NFL scouting system. The way players are labeled before they ever touch a pro field. The way intangibles like confidence and swagger are treated differently depending on where you played, who your dad is, or how much you talk in interviews. The entire ecosystem of how we judge readiness is being put on the spotlight by what Shedeur and Jimmy are accomplishing with limited reps and unlimited resolve. If you're a young athlete watching this unfold, you're seeing proof that you don't need to be the first-round darling to make noise. If you're a coach trying to justify playing time politics, you're sweating. And if you're a fan, you're probably asking the one question Cleveland hates most. Are we going to mess this up again? Because the Browns have a history. A painful, well-documented history of quarterback misfires, offensive dysfunction, and young talent being squandered by bad timing or worse leadership. And now, here comes Shedeur Sanders, NFL ready, smart, unshakably poised. And they're stuck deciding whether to protect egos or embrace the future. It's a decision that could define their season. No, their decade. Jimmy Horn Jr. might not be the headline name, but make no mistake, he's part of that decision. Because pairing a developing QB with a go-to receiver who already understands him, that's every offensive coordinator's dream. And it's happening organically. No gimmicks, no scripts, just football. So where does this go from here? If the Browns want to avoid another headline season of what could have been, they need to stop waiting for permission to change the story. Because the story is already changing. Shedeur is more than a project. Jimmy is more than depth. Together, they're a lightning rod for a franchise that's been stuck in the dark too long. There's a spark here. Something rare. Something electric. Something that doesn't care about draft slots, legacy politics, or preseason rankings. You can feel it in every clean slant route, every crisp three-step drop, every post-practice handshake that lingers just long enough to say, yeah, we're here now. And if Cleveland doesn't lean into it, another team will. And that silence you're hearing, that's every doubter, every critic, every GM, every analyst who laughed off their potential, sitting in stunned, uncomfortable realization. The underdogs are winning. The story isn't following the script. And Shedeur Sanders and Jimmy Horn Jr. are just getting started. Because here's the thing, this kind of rise, it's not the kind you can stage. It's not born from a media machine or cooked up by a PR team. What Shedeur Sanders and Jimmy Horn Jr. are doing is raw, unfiltered football. It's what happens when two players, written off by the draft industrial complex, show up with chips on their shoulders and receipts in their back pockets. And they're cashing those receipts in loud. Every time Shedeur drops back in the pocket and calmly delivers a ball into a tight window, he's rewriting the scouting report that labeled him as not ready. Every time Jimmy explodes off a line and gains separation with just one clean break, he's forcing defensive backs to question their own speed. These aren't isolated flashes. This is a trend. This is momentum building in real time. What's more compelling? They're doing it without complaint, without interviews begging for attention, without cryptic tweets or dramatic gestures. They are letting the work speak, and the message is deafening. It's saying, we belong here. We've always belonged here. You were just too blind to see it. It's gotten to the point where even veterans are taking notice. Quiet respect is turning into visible support. One veteran reportedly said, "That kid throws a prettier ball than anyone we've had here in years." That kid being Shedeur. Another said of Jimmy, "I hate lining up across from him. You blink, and he's 5 yards gone." These are the kinds of quotes that don't come from hype, they come from experience. The leadership, too, is undeniable. Shedeur commands the huddle like he's been in the league for 5 years. He doesn't scream, doesn't posture, he just owns it. And Jimmy? He brings that wide receiver energy, the kind that makes the sideline buzz every time he steps on the field. So now, the Browns face the ultimate test. Will they recognize what's unfolding in front of them? Or will they bury it under depth chart politics and veteran presence excuses? Because if they don't act soon, they'll miss their chance. And someone else will give these two the stage they deserve. And when that happens, Cleveland won't just be watching. They'll be regretting.